Somewhere beneath your lawn right now, a mole is destroying everything you spent months growing, through tunnels it built while you slept. You have never seen it. It has never been caught in a trap. Its nose detects metal and human skin before it gets close. That same nose is its only weakness. There are 7 plants whose scent moles find so threatening they will not come near and will not return. People have planted them for centuries. In a few minutes you will know the most effective ones and how to use them. And here is what almost nobody talks about. The 7th plant on this list, the last one, is the one most people have never considered. It grows almost anywhere. It requires almost no care, and it may be the single most effective natural mold deterrent that exists. That one is worth staying for. But first, the one that surprises almost nobody, and yet is almost always used wrong. Mentha piperita, peppermint. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine that scent. Sharp, cooling, almost electric. For you, refreshing. For a mole, overwhelming, physically distressing. Here is why, and this is the piece that changes how you think about everything else on this list. A mole is not a bold animal. It is a creature of profound caution. Almost completely blind, it navigates its entire world through smell. It does not just smell food, it smells danger. It smells whether something threatening passed through this soil 3 days ago. When a mole encounters a scent its nervous system classifies as hostile, the response is not curiosity. It turns around, and it does not come back. Most homeowners reach immediately for poison or traps, completely unaware that their grandmother's garden may have been doing the job all along. Peppermint works because of menthol, present at up to 40%. Menthol interacts with a cold-sensing receptor in the mole's nervous system. Overstimulation produces distress, not discomfort. The chemistry that feels refreshing to you reads as something closer to pain in the mole's sensory system. Add the secondary terpene compounds, menthone, methyl acetate, and you have a chemical environment the mole's brain classifies as dangerous. It moves away, every time. Ancient Roman farmers documented this. Peppermint was woven into granary thatching, not as fragrance, as protection. Plant it densely along your home's exterior walls, near where pipes enter the foundation, and along garden borders. One important note, peppermint is invasive. Use containers or edging to control its spread. But that aggressive tendency is exactly what makes it effective as a barrier. Trimming it regularly releases a fresh burst of volatile compounds and increases its effectiveness. The second plant surprises more people because many of them have been growing it for years without knowing what it was quietly doing. Lavender angustifolia, lavender, thick, sweet, slightly camphor-edged. For you, calming. For a mole, deeply aversive. The primary volatile compounds, linalool, linylyl acetate, and camphor, are individually gentle to the human nose. Together, in the concentration of a dense planting, they create a chemical signal that moles are neurologically programmed to avoid. The camphor component triggers receptors associated with chemical irritation. To the mole's nose, a lavender border is not beautiful. It is a warning. Medieval French farmers planted lavender along kitchen garden perimeters, not for fragrance, but because rodents did not nest in lavender. Basic agricultural knowledge, not a gardening choice, a practical decision. Drought, tolerant, and thriving in poor, well-drained soil, lavender produces its heaviest volatile output during hot summers, exactly when mole activity peaks. Planted in full sun along walkways, near entry points, and as border edging around vegetable gardens. Unlike peppermint, lavender stays exactly where you put it, a reliable perennial that earns its place for decades. And here is what almost nobody mentions. The scent that drifts through your garden on a summer evening is quietly, continuously doing something else entirely. The third plant is the most overlooked in the garden center, and possibly the hardworking, Tagetes species, marigolds. Most gardeners treat them as cheerful filler, something bright for a border, an afterthought. They have been companion planted by agricultural cultures on nearly every inhabited continent for reasons that go far beyond aesthetics. The chemistry is real and well documented. Tagetes species produce a class of compounds called thiophenies, sulfur-based organic molecules with intensely sharp, pungent chemical signatures. At normal distance, marigolds simply smell like marigolds to you. To a mole, perceiving chemical signals at concentrations orders of magnitude more sensitive, a dense marigold planting creates a sulfur-dominated environment that registers as actively aversive at the neurological level. There is also the root chemistry. Marigold roots release alpha-terthional into the soil, a thiophene compound that moles encounter through direct contact during burrowing. Not lethal, simply deeply unpleasant in a way the mole cannot override. Plant densely. A solid row along the base of a vegetable fence creates meaningful chemical coverage. They grow quickly, self-seed readily, and deter aphids and whitefly while drawing in pollinators. The humble marigold, the most overlooked plant in the garden center, doing more work than almost anything else in the border. The fourth plant is not one most gardeners would choose for beauty, but the historical record around it is among the most consistent on this list. Artemisia absinthium, wormwood. Medieval farmstead guides always noted it near granaries. They always described it as a plant that vermin would not go near. Accumulated agricultural intelligence passed forward through generations of direct observation. The primary compound is absinthin, so intensely bitter it is detectable at 1 part in 70,000. But bitterness is what humans experience. Moles process wormwood through their olfactory system first. The volatile oils, absinthiol, thujone, azulene, register as acutely aversive. Thujone has neurotoxic properties at high concentrations, and the mole's nervous system has evolved a strong avoidance response to plants producing it. The ancient Egyptians referenced wormwood in agricultural documents over 3,000 years old. Medieval European granaries frequently had it planted along exterior walls. Wormwood grows to about 1 meter, silvery gray-green, and is strongly fragrant. Drought-tolerant, it thrives in poor soils, full sun, and requires almost no maintenance. Plant it along fence lines, at property corners, near compost heaps. Keep it away from vegetable beds, because its root chemistry suppresses nearby plants. It stakes out its territory and defends it. That is precisely the point. The fifth plant is one most people already have in their kitchen, and almost never think to put in their garden for this purpose. Allium sativum, garlic. Inside each clove, 2 compounds are kept physically separate. The moment the clove is damaged, crushed, bruised, cut, they combine and produce allicin, that sharp, sulfurous, penetrating scent. To a mole, allicin belongs to a class of organosulfur compounds that produce some of the most intense volatile signatures in the plant world. The mola relies on sulfur-based scent markers for critical environmental signals, including predator detection. It responds to allicin with what researchers describe as a strong, unconditioned aversive response. It does not need to learn that garlic is unpleasant. The response is built in. Garlic has a particular advantage as a garden plant. It grows underground, the main chemical payload is in the soil, exactly where moles move and burrow. The leaves and stems release volatile compounds when brushed or damaged, as a mole moving through would inevitably do. Plant densely along vegetable garden edges and around raised beds. Garlic borders do double duty, a chemical deterrent and a harvest. The sixth plant has been growing outside Mediterranean farmhouse doors for thousands of years, and the farmers who planted it there knew exactly what they were doing. Salvia rosmarinus, rosemary. Before science gave it a systematic explanation, Mediterranean farmers gave it a practical one. Plant rosemary near the food stores, and the moles will find somewhere else to be. Rosemary produces camphor, camphene, alpha-pinene, and 1,8-cineole eucalyptol. In moles, camphor and cineole together produce strong olfactory aversion. The sheer density of volatile output from a mature rosemary shrub in warm weather creates a chemical environment that moles find deeply hostile. Rosemary is a perennial evergreen, providing chemical coverage year-round. It is drought-tolerant, thriving in poor, well-drained soils, and becomes increasingly bushy with age. Planted at the corners of raised beds, along pathways, near doorways and entry points, and flanking any area where mole activity has been observed. Running a hand along rosemary foliage and releasing that wave of resinous, piney scent, there is something old about it, a scent that has surrounded human homes and food stores for millennia. Part of the reason it became so embedded in domestic life may have been exactly this, that it quietly held a perimeter. And now, the seventh, the one worth waiting for, Sambucus nigra. Elder. Most American gardeners have never considered this plant for pest control. Modern pest advice rarely mentions it, but in rural communities across England, Germany, and Poland, the elder tree occupied a specific and intentional position, planted at the edge of property, near outbuildings, adjacent to grain stores. Removing an elder without good reason was considered deeply unwise, not for mystical reasons, because it kept the vermin away. The elder produces complex chemistry throughout all parts of the plant. The leaves and bark contain sambinegrin and other cyanogenic glycosides, compounds that release trace amounts of hydrogen cyanide when plant tissue is damaged. Not dangerous to humans at normal exposure, but moles processing the environment through olfactory receptors evolved to detect chemical danger signals, register the cyanogenic chemistry of elder foliage as a serious threat. That acrid, unusual scent of damaged elder leaves, quite distinct from anything else in a garden, appears to trigger a hardwired avoidance response. Gardeners who have planted elder along a property boundary have reported that mole runs stop at the elder line and do not cross it. Not occasionally, consistently. Elder grows in almost any soil and often reaches 3 meters within 2 to 3 years, spreading slowly along fence lines and property edges, exactly where its chemical presence is most useful. The flowers produce elderflower. The berries, properly prepared and never eaten raw, yield one of the most antioxidant-rich fruits available. A plant that feeds you and protects your property while requiring almost nothing in return. Plant it at the boundaries of your property, near garden sheds and compost heaps. Give it space, and then leave it alone. The oldest farmers in Northern Europe understood this. The plant has not changed, only the knowledge has faded, and now it is back. There is something that happens when you look closely at traditional agricultural practices, once dismissed as folklore, the unscientific habits of people who did not know better. You begin to find the chemistry underneath them. They knew, not in the way we now know, with molecular diagrams and peer-reviewed studies. They knew through observation, through inheritance, through the accumulated wisdom of people who could not afford to get it wrong. The moles were always there, and people found the plants. They planted certain scents along certain borders and passed the knowledge forward. What this list represents is not new information. It is recovered information. Peppermint at the foundation, lavender at the borders, marigolds in dense rows around vegetable beds, wormwood along the fence line, garlic throughout the kitchen garden, rosemary flanking entry points and outbuildings, and elder, patient and substantial, standing at the edges of the property, doing what it has always done. You are not fighting nature when you plant these. You are joining a conversation that has been happening between plants and animals for millions of years. A conversation your grandmother's garden was already part of, whether she knew it or not. If this has changed how you look at your garden borders, subscribe, and leave a comment below telling me which plant surprised you most. The next video covers the companion planting combinations that work best together. That one is worth staying for.